We are right now at the very north of Norway in the town of Tromso. Tromso is the Arctic capital of the north, situated at 69 degrees latitude. This is one of the world's most northerly towns you can visit. This is actually world's largest town this far north of the Arctic, anywhere outside Russia. So come join me on a journey as we spend 3 days in Tromso on a family adventure. Now, we arrived at Tromso from the island of Lofoten Islands. There is an archipelago which is situated around 5 hours down south. So we drove, we had a car, and the drive is absolutely spectacular. This is May, by the way, and it is like snow-capped mountains, frozen lakes. It is beautiful and gorgeous everywhere. There's a whole bunch of things to do on the way, like a museum to visit. You visit the town of Narvik. And we finally arrived at our destination in Tromso after a 6-hour drive, where we are staying at a very colorful and vibrant hotel of Moxy. This is a Marriott property situated very close to the airport. You get a gorgeous view of the city from the back door, and the inside of the property, if you have ever stayed in a Moxy, you would know, is very vibrant and colorful. You check in at the bar, it automatically puts you in a great mood. There's a whole bunch of things to play over here, and the view on the outside, we are at the 11th floor, that's where the check-in is. And once you go out, the view is absolutely spectacular. You can see the whole of island in front of you, and that's the water body is the Strait of Tromso, or the Tromsoya Strait. Now, one of the first activities we had planned, this was actually the next day, is visiting an Arctic fjord. This is a half-day trip which leaves from this place in Tromso called Kaigata, or one of the port areas, and we get on this silent fjord to go to a fjord called Ramsfjorden. The unique thing about Ramsfjorden is this is a fjord which sort of freezes over. Now, fjords are these long narrow bodies of water which don't freeze over typically. But in case of Ramsfjorden, it gets a huge inflow of fresh water from those mountains all around it, and it's this water which sort of lies on top of the salt water, and that water freezes over, which creates this very unique landscape. And it is apparently very popular with the locals during the winter months who come here for fishing, snow tubing, and a whole bunch of other snow activities. When we visited in May, the ice shelf was thinner, so we only saw the birds who are doing all the fishing over there. Now, the overall trip is 4 hours or so. Once we got back to the mainland, this is sort of walking around that Kaigata area. That is the old Tromso. This has a lot of gift shops, a lot of restaurants. So you are going to spend a lot of time walking around this area. One of the things we wanted to do was visit a Sami village nearby. Samis are these local people who have lived here for over 1,000 years. They're the local tribes, and you get to go to their village, eat a very traditional Sami food, ride on the dog sleighs, pet a reindeer and stuff like that. Unfortunately, in May, those Sami trips are closed, so we got the next best thing, that is a Sami shop. It is right near this Kaigata area. It is run by the Sami people, where they sell a whole bunch of their handicraft and artworks and things like that. It has a whole bunch of fascinating things. We ended up buying one of those reindeer skins from here. They also had little samples of reindeer and whale sausage. I don't know how the whale one is still legal, but those were delicious and you can buy them from here. There's a whole bunch of, as you can see, there's things like wooden arts and crafts, and most of the stuff is made by the Sami people locally. It's a little expensive, but if you are looking for local stuff, definitely that's where you need to go. One of the things we wanted to do, and which we could do, unlike the Sami thing, is riding this jailhazen cable car. This is right outside of Tromso. So Tromso is an island which is situated on this island called Tromsoya. So you cross the bridge over, come to this sort of mainland, and that's where you have this cable car. So we are riding at pretty late in the night. I think our we rode at like 9 p.m. and as you can see, this is the land of the midnight sun. We are not quite at midnight sun, but it's at 9 p.m. but it is bright. And once you go on top, the view is absolutely spectacular. This is still May, by the way, right? Like when you have everything snow covered. That water body is the Tromsoya Strait, which connects it to the sea, which is not too far off, the Norwegian Sea. And that's where you see the town of Tromso right in front of you, which is surrounded by this water body on all sides. On top of this mountain, there's a whole bunch of areas where you can do hiking. You can rent out snowshoes. We went pretty late and we had two young kids, so those were not really great options. As well as the snow at this time is kind of hard and it's frozen, so it's very slippery. Now, this was a very interesting find. We found the world's northernmost McDonald's. We did not know this thing quite existed. This had actually opened just a few months before we visited, and it took the title from McDonald's out in Finland. You know, the meal was fine. It reminded you everywhere you were in the northernmost McDonald's. So that's quite something. If you're there, definitely check that out. Next day, one of the things our agenda items was visiting some of the museums. Now, there are quite a few different museums. The first one we decided to visit is called the Polar Museet, or the Polar Museum. This museum is situated in the old customs house of Tromso. This is where the old time the ships will come and customs will be collected. And today it has been converted into this fascinating museum where you can see a lot of the history of Tromso about all the sealing activity which used to happen. You can learn about the Ronald Amundsen's different voyages, how life used to be in old Tromso, about you see a lot of stuffed animals, as well as learn a bunch of things that are Svalbard. You can also see a lot of old weapons and boats which was used to travel out here. Definitely a very interesting museum to come visit. And the outside of the museum gives you absolutely spectacular view of the Tromso Strait. And next up is the Troll Museum. This was going to be my kids' favorite. They have just watched the Trolls movie and this was an absolute must-stop for us. As far as I know, as far as my research tells me, this is the only troll museum in the world. So that itself makes it very unique. This is a AR troll museum. So there are a lot of places where you go and you interact with the exhibits through those digital screens. And you see a whole bunch of different kinds of trolls. This particular troll is from the seas of Tromso. Apparently a very friendly troll. So trolls are these mythical creatures of Norwegian and Scandinavian folklore and mythology, and this is where you sort of come up close and personal with a whole bunch of them. Some scary, some snow trolls, some water trolls and things like that. Now, next up in our journey was this island of Sommaroy. So we were a little confused, like there were a few different things to do. Either we could have gone to this place like Lincoln Alps or Sommaroy, but we wanted to explore around Tromso a little bit. We ended up choosing Sommaroy. We have heard a lot of good stuff. This is around a 2 hours drive from Tromso. The drive was, as we said, spectacular, but the drive is on very narrow roads and it is very winding. It was a little unnerving to drive on this. Once you reach here, this is extremely quiet. I think this is a shoulder season, that's why it's probably quieter. And as you can see, the views are absolutely gorgeous. Sommaroy is much closer to the Norwegian Sea. It is right on the Norwegian Sea. There are a lot of good hikes over here, so that's right where the Norwegian Sea is. There are a lot of good hikes over here. We did not really have that much of time to go on those hikes. On the way back, we stopped at this place called Fjord Bottom. This is a viewing point where one of the fjords end, and you get to see this amazing view of the end of a fjord. As like everywhere else, you can hike down there quite a bit. Now, one of the must-do things while in Tromso is visit the Arctic Cathedral. This was built in mid 1960s, and today it has become an icon of not only Tromso but of northern Norway. Unfortunately, with everything else going on, we reached here like at 6 p.m., 6:30 p.m. This museum, the cathedral, sorry, it closes around I think like 5ish. So we could not go in. There is a huge organ inside. So if you are visiting during the day, you can go in. So that's the bridge which you see in front. So this is where on this side of the bridge is the Arctic Cathedral, and behind it is the cable car which we talked about earlier. And then you cross the bridge and you go to the main island. Now this was a very fascinating restaurant we found called Egon. We ended up having a great meal here, very kid friendly, very quirky decor, great food. If you are here, we would definitely recommend this to have lot of good food options, and it's a chain. We ended up actually eating here a few more times while in Oslo and in Bergen later on, and that pretty much brought us close to our Tromsø trip. Next up, we are headed to the town of Bergen in the fjord country of southern Norway.